What's up, everybody? Welcome to week 4 of our city groups. We have loved this journey. We're so grateful that you're on this with us. We are continuing in this theme of presence, a people of the presence of God and worship. Our hope is the byproduct or result of even these 5 weeks, in addition to your going deeper and getting to know people and community, is that in our lives, both individually and corporately, there would be a greater pursuit, a greater awareness, and we would be able to notice a marking change out of these 5 weeks, that we know who we are. We are people of the presence of God, that there's a deeper sense of pursuit, guarding, valuing that, and that is reflected in our worship. Today, we've got some very, very familiar faces. Myriah Grubbs and Brett Lee Miller, which is Brett's middle name. I love to call him that. I've been really loving bringing in different people in our community, as well as people that carry this thing that we're going after, or actually leading, cultivating this. And so we're gonna have them share some things that I think are gonna be really key for you. But let me start with this verse. On week 2, Derek Johnson read this verse in Romans 12, where he mentioned this. It's Romans 12:1. It says, "Therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Don't be conformed any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." So what Romans 12 is highlighting is worship, which is connected to presence, as we've been talking about, is not just a song. It's a part of it, but actually the truest, deepest form of this is it's our lives, that our lives offered, surrendered to God. This is our true form of worship. Mm-hmm. And so that's actually what makes the song so powerful. It's actually connected to that. We're going to dive into a little bit more on this, but this thing I want to just kind of put out to you, as you've probably been catching by now, is there is more of God for your life. There's more of his presence in our life as worship, which actually means us giving more of ourselves is connected to the more of God. Yeah. And so today, what I want to do is have Myriah and Brett, which we so appreciate you guys. You lead us, along with many others, into the presence of God, into places and moments of encounter. But I thought it'd be cool to kind of flip the script a little bit, because normally you're leading songs and leading us into a place of musical worship. Yeah. But I know your lives, and I know that you get this thing in Romans 12. Like you're not just singing songs, you're talented, but the real power is not just in using those gifts. It's actually come out of your living out Romans 12. Yeah. And so what I wanted to do, I thought it'd be cool, because as people come on a Sunday or any time we're gathered corporately, and you're leading, there's always this invitation, like, let's go after God and things like that. Mm-hmm. But what would you say to our community, to individuals, of like, hey, like this, there's an invitation, maybe a challenge, or some practical ways, like how do we step into more? Specifically, let's look at like corporate worship, and it will obviously go into our individual lives. But so I kind of want to just do that, because again, like I said, my hope is that as we come out of this, we go to deeper places, individually and corporately, because there is so much more. So I don't know who wants to start. Brett, I see you kind of chomping at the bit there.
I'm always chomping on this.
There we go.
On this. So the first thing that came to mind when if we're just talking about corporate worship, I've been doing this little thing for the last couple of years, actually, where I visualize when I'm driving to church on Sunday morning, whether I'm leading or not, I sort of get my imagination rolling, and I visualize what would it have been like in biblical times to take that pilgrimage to the altar. Because we even still call it that. We're like, hey guys, come up to the altar, and that's beautiful. But I think in modern times, we've actually made the altar a place of receiving, which is great. I think we always will receive when we're in the Lord's presence, but that's not what the altar used to be. So when they would take a pilgrimage to the altar, I think about how much holy pride would I have if I was bringing my most beautiful, fattest cow to the altar to light it up and give it to the Lord.
That's
I know,
powerful.
I know. Forgive me. But you think about this. If you run with this on me for a second, if you're walking and you're seeing these other people bringing their greatest offering to the Lord, to the altar, and I don't know where we started to get it wrong, but for some reason, I feel like sometimes we lose this perspective of it is an honor, it is a privilege, and there's actually should be an amount of healthy pride in, you know what, I'm gonna bring my greatest, my most sacrificial offering to the Lord. And even whether, Joe or Sally are bringing, something that's not as great, maybe it's a smaller cow, maybe it's not their best, whatever, I'm gonna actually get more excited than I'm bringing something better. And then I'm gonna light it up and give it to the Lord. Yeah. And so I like to visualize, what was the original intent of this? It's simple, it's that he's worthy. Yeah. And so when we make church accidentally all about just receiving, I think we fall into the trap of forgetting that it's actually all about his goodness and responding to his kindness in our lives. And when we bring our best, boom, that's check the victory box of a Sunday. I brought my best. I brought my most sacrificial praise to the table. Sometimes that looks like joy. If I'm mourning, it's joy. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't always have to look the same. Yeah. But that's just an intro to that conversation. But I would say I visualize that. I visualize, okay, Lord, this isn't about me just receiving. I'm going to bring you my best today.
So good. Yeah. And that's like what Romans 12 was talking about. We offer our lives as a living sacrifice coming to the altar. Yeah. Mariah, what about you? What would you say?
I'd say exactly that. That was great.
Copy paste.
Honestly, I think about this too. I mean, I know I've said this before, but I think of that we have been given this invitation that's like, it hasn't always been on the table, before Jesus died. There wasn't just this invitation for us to just be able to show up, And so I literally visualize every time I am leading in corporate worship, the veil ripping. Yeah. Always tearing it into, you guys are welcome in this place. So that's kind of like... a baby step. Yeah. Now that you're here, worship is like, I definitely agree. I don't know if it's a cultural thing or what, but like people, it feels like are coming to receive, and they will. But that's not why we're here. We're not here to receive. We're not here to glean. So I'm going to give a little personal story here. For this entire year, I've had this mystery health struggle. Starting at the beginning of the year, completely out of the blue. And something interesting that so many people had asked me or said, I can't believe you're still coming to church, because I have felt pretty terrible, honestly. I have been in bed for weeks, and then I'd still come on Sunday,
and lead some Sundays. Crazy.
I did, yeah. And it was a baffling question to me, because I had always from as long as I can remember, I had decided that this was to show up. Yeah. Bottom line, baseline. I decided that worship was just that, an offering. I'm not coming. I literally can't stand to not be in the presence of God. So I show up. And I know that sounds like so that I can feel better, and so I can but it wasn't that, because I felt like I'd rather just lay in my bed and watch TV or whatever, or just stream, I'll just stream the service. But I have showed up, because when you show up and you look messy and the things are coming out of your face and you're weeping and crying and laying on the floor and everyone wants to hug you and pray for you and all the things, and I find that personally uncomfortable. Yeah. That is a sacrifice. I'm like, I just want to come and lay this down at the altar and just give God the glory and thank him for saving my life and for praise him for who he is. I am here simply because he's God. That's it. So he's God. Go. That's why I'm here. Not because I'm gonna receive, which honestly, I love to receive, don't get me wrong, but I'm here because he's God, and that is bottom line, so.
So good. I want to go into two things, but I'll say this, Brett, you said this before on Sundays. There's this thing sometimes, specifically at church, we'll just look at corporate gatherings, where we look at the worship leader, we have our favorite worship leaders, and it's like, oh, it's going to be good because so-and-so's there. Or like we almost evaluate, like, how was the worship service, you know? And someone's like, oh, it was great. And often it's focused on the person leading. And there's a lot of, like, you both are anointed, you know, gifted worship leaders. But like you were talking about earlier, Brett, we're missing something.
Yeah.
And you've said this, and I want to talk about this. I'm kind of setting this up. Like, we believe there's more, but it's not because of a talented leader or a gifted person. There's more because of who he is.
Yes.
And if we can get this into our mind, we do, like you're saying, like both of you, we're showing up no matter how we feel. But like, I'll say this and then kind of tee this up for you. It's kind of like a softball lob. I think some of us feel like there's this mystery, or like, and there is with the Spirit of God, but like, it's like, oh, like, I wonder if it's gonna be good today, you know, or like, it's almost like rolling the dice, like, oh, hopefully it's a good worship service today.
Yeah.
And it's almost like there's these outward happenstance things that like, maybe it will line up and I'm gonna have an encounter with God. Listen, we don't control the Spirit of God. However, if we come expectant, bringing ourselves, not expecting Brett or Myriah to lead us. Like, we've all been in these moments where, like, what happened? You know what happened? There was an expectancy.
Yes.
There was a hunger that caused people to show up when they didn't want to be there, that caused people to bring an offering that was costly. And like, actually, that's what causes things to happen. So like, I know, I want you guys to talk about that, because that's this thing. This is the dream and desire. Like, we don't want just awesome worship because we have awesome worship leaders. We do, but that's actually not what we're looking for. We want to be a people, a community that lives this out, and that we come with expectancy, we come with hunger, believing there's more. And actually, as we're talking about in these 5 weeks, things shift and change when we show up. And it's not the other way around, like, oh, like, I hope someone else shows up and gets me to where I want to be. Like, we bring that. So can you talk about that? Like, let's just focus on Sunday mornings for it's way bigger than that, but let's just focus on that. What happens, like, and as a worship leader, what's the other side of the experience, or hope, or invitation, challenge even?
That's so good. Well, I think something that I really like to constantly reflect on, especially as we're building this church and building our worship culture, I want to make it super clear that, like, to be a worship leader, your ultimate moment of arrival, your greatest dream should be working yourself out of a job. And as it pertains to Sunday morning, right? I don't know for sure. I know that there are musicians in heaven, but I don't know that worship leaders are going to be needed in heaven. I think when you actually step into the true glory of God and you meet with him face to face, if you read every encounter throughout Scripture of people that actually stood in his presence, they all responded more like a dead body than anything else. They just laid flat on the ground. And it even describes that they laid down as a dead person. Like, the glory of God, when we see him face to face, it's game over. No one's gonna need to be on a platform telling you what to do. And so I think there's a level of humility involved as a worship leader that I have to remember every single Sunday. The entertainment industry is fine. I have some amazing people that are in the entertainment industry, but that's not what we're doing on Sunday. And so the reason why we have the lights and the sound and all this stuff is because it's the same thing they were doing in the tabernacle. We are each bringing our greatest gifts, our greatest artistic expression. So we've got someone on that light panel that is so passionate about lighting rooms that they're worshiping the Lord. And so I think sometimes we cross the wires and we get a little confused. Like, okay, you're telling me to close my eyes and look at Jesus, but there's lights and all this stuff. It's like, no, we're all just coming to the altar, bringing him our best. And I think, in its purest, the truest sense for me of victory as a worship leader is unfortunately, that I'm not needed anymore. And so I dream of a day where I come to church and people have already been sitting in the sanctuary telling God how good he is. And all I really need to do is tell him what song we're about to go into.
Yeah.
That's like the dream of dreams for me.
Yeah. So good.
I'll tee that up. You can go from there.
So a couple of weeks ago, I guess it would be a few by now, but Jordan came up to open the service, and I love what he did. He said, "You guys are the worship leaders. We aren't going to play any music right now. You guys are going to start worshiping. We're going to worship, and then we can start this, but you guys are the worship leaders." So, and it was that's
so
just
good.
like you said,
So
like
good.
the dream. It was so good. I love that because we get so reliant on the people on the stage to tell us what to do, and it's really like an innate thing, you know. Worshiping it's part of our DNA, you know. So just to like unlock that and tap into. And if anyone's needing something practical, we enter the gates with thanksgiving. Simply just, what are you thankful for? Say it. Tell them what you're thankful for. Then after that, praise. That's when we praise. And I don't know. It's not hard. It's so simple.
Yeah.
I think we've complicated it.
Yeah.
So
it's real.
So good.
And I do want to say too, like I want to touch on, because you mentioned there are times where we feel God's presence more than others. And that's real. But I think there is a little bit of confusion that can creep in, because the truth is that there are moments where we experience the glory of God in the room. And then I think sometimes we can set the bar of standard of what it feels like when his manifestation, his manifested glory enters the room. We sort of have this new neutral of like, wait, I felt goosebumps, my hair stood up, I felt like time stood still, I felt all these things. And then what happens is when his weighted glory maybe is not in the room the way that we experienced that one time, I think sometimes if we don't feel the goosebumps, we start to be like, okay, who am I going to blame? It's that song. That song just wasn't good enough for God. I'm not feeling that. I wasn't feeling worship. And that's okay. I give you the freedom to not like a song. That's fine. But in those moments, what I want to challenge you in is that it's actually not the song's fault. I think sometimes we get it a little crossed up because we experience the manifestation of God's glory, and it sets the bar for what it's actually like to be with him face to face. And I don't have time to unpack all of this theologically, but there is the God that is present and everywhere. But you see throughout Scripture, there are times where he reveals different levels of his glory to people. The wind blows through. We've experienced stuff at church where it's like you feel like royalty just entered the room. But my challenge is when you're not feeling that, it doesn't mean that someone's to blame. It doesn't mean that it's the band or it's the worship leader or it's the song or it's whatever. I think sometimes God he hovers in a specific area waiting for us to surrender something, waiting for us to realize that, oh, wait, I'm actually just being distracted right now. We have permanent access to simmer and to soak in the majesty and the awe of God. I could do it right now I'm already feeling his presence without a guitar. The reason why the Lord's Prayer starts with hallowed be your name is because if you start with the awe and the fear of the Lord, his presence shows up like that. And so my challenge to us as a community is that start in your car. I'm down for a little bit to lead you in worship. I'm okay with that. We've said yes to that. There's a cost to being the first ones there to set the altar. But my challenge to you is don't let that be your permanent state. Get into the awe and the fear of the Lord on your way to church before you get there. Get there in your closet. Get there way before you get to church.
On your way everywhere.
And then when you come to church, worship will be transformational every time, I promise you.
It's so good. As we're kind of wrapping this up, I want to ask you one more question, Myriah. You mentioned kind of a moment at church when Jordan was there. By the time you guys are watching this, maybe you'll remember in July we had an encounter night. We do these encounter nights on the first Tuesday of the month. This one was a little later because of the 4th of July, but we actually were with the Catholic Church. And at the very end, so the best part of corporate gathering is not when we have a good plan, but when our plans don't work. Because that means that we're following, being led by the presence of God, and not just, there is a requirement to bring something like we're talking about. But you were actually leading worship.
Yeah.
And I've said this before, one of my favorite things is when you don't know what to do. Because then you're like, okay, what are you gonna do, God? And this is the good thing that you mentioned, Brett, is like sometimes it could be joy and dancing and shouting. Sometimes it's silence. No one says anything. And like, it's never the same. Read throughout Scripture.
Yeah.
But we went into this moment. We didn't go into a song. Like, you started just singing something spontaneously. And I wanna highlight this with you, because I think for some people, they don't actually fully know what's happening.
Right.
And like you guys have mentioned this, like the dream or the goal that we're going after is not that we watch you guys do this, it's that we learn to do this ourselves. Like, some of the best moments are like these spontaneous corporate, this is heaven. Like, they're singing not a song with, lyrics. They're singing holy, and it's coming out of them. So I want to just talk about this as we close, because this is so key. Like, the spontaneous, like, corporate response that is not scripted. Yeah. You do this all the time, but how do people step into this?
Just
corporately in community,
corporate. Well, that particular incident, that's probably not the right word.
The worship incident?
Not the word. That particular moment was tricky for me, and I because it wasn't just us, family. We had our neighbors, and we don't necessarily all believe all the same things and have all the same,
Yeah.
And I wrestled. I wrestled because I could feel the presence of God so strongly, and I was like, okay, I had to choose.
Yeah.
I had to choose going after the presence of God, or not offending somebody, or not stepping on toes. And it was meant at a moment where he was supposed to come up, and I was looking at you, I'm like, do I, don't I, do I, don't I? Is this about to get real bad, like messy? And it was scary, actually. I felt scared because I really, really didn't want to offend anybody, which I normally don't care about. But in this moment, I really didn't want to. It felt, okay, so this felt really obvious because to me, the presence was so strong. It doesn't always feel like that. And so it was just like, all right, here we go. We did it, and it was amazing. Everyone was like, so it was just, I don't know. You weren't there. I'm so sorry. You missed it. It was real good. But it doesn't always feel like that. But I would say in a corporate setting, it's easy to latch onto what is being sung. And sometimes you don't really, like even me, sometimes I'm like, I don't know the words to say right now. I don't have the right words. I don't have if this comes out, it could come out like, who knows what I'm saying, who knows. But just what I said the first time, thankfulness. Start with thankfulness. Start with thankfulness. What are you thankful for? And then praise. And it's so simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. And you can watch it like a wave across the room. And everyone can't see that, but from up on the stage, you can see the wave across. It's like, if you're at a game and everyone's like, it's like that in the spirit. And it is beautiful, and it's fun.
That's a good analogy, because you go to a baseball game, and when one person starts cheering, it brings other people. And I think we separate these are natural things that happen.
Absolutely.
Not just in sports, but it's just human nature. And we almost leave it out the door. It's like, listen, you bring you, and it will not only move the heart of God, it moves other people, and like, this is what we're going after. So we could talk about this. That's why we're taking 5 weeks. But we just want to say, hey, like, kind of coming back to what we started, there's more. And the way that we step into that is what Brett just communicated so good. We're not coming to receive, we're coming to bring praise to him, thanksgiving to him. But we also know that stuff happens when we bring what's costly, when we bring and respond to the Spirit of God and what he's worthy of. And so again, this is our hope. We're gonna go into some questions, and we're actually taking time during these city groups to activate and practice this. And so I just wanna say, let's press into more and let's bring ourselves fully, whether you're by yourself, whether you're at church on Sunday, wherever we're at, because there's something powerful to happen. So that's it for this video portion. We're gonna dive back into our groups, but we're so glad that you're on this journey with us.